خالد ممكن ارسله لجروب بيت السودان لانه في ناس كانوا قاعدين في الميتنج ومنتظرين يخشوا تاني. خالد سامعني؟
ايوه
انا
سامعك. ايوه ايوه سامعك.
ممكن ارسله.
رسله عادي. ايوه
كويس.
رسله.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمه.
وعليكم السلام. حصل شنو؟
حصل في زي هاك كده
مم.
للزوم ميتنج. فمعليش ما في مشكله، احنا اسفين للحاجه دي، لكن المشكله اتصلحت. يعني ده بقى برايفت ميتنج، وبيكون طبعا يا اخواننا الزوم فيه سيتنج انه يو ادميت بيبل. يعني ما بيكون اوبن روم، يو هاف تو مانيولي ادميت بيبل. ودي الحاجه اللي احنا عملناها في الميتنج ده.
اوكي تمام
ايوه
فهمت.
فايتس اول جود. يعني ما الناس، ما الموضوع ما يعمل لنا distraction. I think that's what they want يعني.
Yeah.
yeah we'll continue.
الريكوردينج بيكون اتحفظ يا ربي.
ايوه يتحفظ.
اوكي طيب الحمد لله، دي أهم حاجة.
اي
اوكي.
بعدين بنعمل لهم مونتاج وبننزله عادي يعني.
اوكي تمام، جزاك الله خير.
yeah. Please feel free to share. ويعني اي زول. احنا كنا 18 في الاجتماع اللي فات ده. حاولوا privately تنادوا الناس دي تاني.
نحطه في الجروب.
ايوه ويلكم باك يا اخواننا، الناس كلها تيجي راجعه وتواصل، وزي ما
ممكن
حصل
ندي
حاجه
ناس
يعني.
شوية في الحرية.
ايوه. يا يا مرحب هالة، بلقيس، داليا.
أسامي كلها very familiar. ازيكم يا شباب؟
ايوه
أهلين دكتورتنا العسل. كيفك؟ سارة
الله يديكم العافية يا أخي.
معاكي أمل.
أهلين يا أمل، كل الأشواق والله إليكم،
كيف
يديكم
أخبارك؟
العافية.
إن شاء الله بخير.
الحمد لله والله بخير.
الحمد لله،
معانا
مستمتعين
حالة.
والله
أنا
بالزوم الجميل ده والله.
أيوة، الله يديك العافية حبيبي، الله يسلمك إن شاء الله بالتوفيق. لولو كيفك حبيبة؟ تمام؟
صيتك الحمد لله والله بخير، يديك العافية.
الله يديك العافية، ربنا يوفقكم إن شاء الله يا رب.
انت كمان
معانا
يا رب. الله
معانا
يسلمك.
11 شخص لسه محتاجين 7، تخليك كنا 18.
I'm messaging some of the people that signed
يا
up.
يا ممكن تودوا برضو الجروب العام اللينك الجديد. ان شاء الله going forward يعني الاجتماعات كلها هتكون برايفت. يعني هنعمل ماني والادميتن،
Okay.
نتاكد من الناس قبل ما الناس تخش يعني.
حاجة تانية برضه دكتور خالد، ممكن تعمل ميوت as they join as well، لأن في ناس بتنسى إنه يعملوا ميوت تمام.
ايوه ايوه
ده
بيكون
setting.
setting. yeah.
تمام.
طيب شي عندنا مين؟ انا هبدا اعمل شير عشان نواصل. كنا في السلايد سلايد have to open the slide here.
Q&A صح؟
أنا تقريبا كنت عايزة أتكلم شوية عن البروجرام ذاته، يعني أثناء السنتين ونص الثلاث سنين دي. أنا حاسة إنه عملنا لها سكيب كده.
يا سحر، انت لو عملت ريكاب كده لحد ما انا get the slide ready that would be good يعني.
أوكي تمام ما في مشكلة.
نعمل
تقريبا كان
معلش اسهل، نعمل ريكورد بس عشان الناس تستفيد.
تخلينا I'm recording at my local
خلاص
machine يا ريت. ايوه
خلاص.
yeah.
تمام. طيب welcome back everyone. I think we were kind of towards the end. يعني the biggest thing that I wanted to, I felt I skipped it or I didn't give it its worth. يعني حتى ما اديتها سلايد واحدة الثلاثة سنة دي، يعني فهمتوني؟ يعني أنا زولة متفائلة جدا في الحياة. But the point is يعني the 3 years itself that you are undergoing training or you're in the PA program, it takes the right people صح؟ يعني انتوا زول داير يكون medical provider وزول داير يكون في medical field بيكون اصلا زول already عنده qualities to that effect يعني بيكون زول dedicated hard worker someone who's kind of set a little bit apart from the rest. I say that to say because يعني أنا ما دايرة أدلي. I don't want to give the impression that this is the easy route to be a medical provider. You don't want to be an MD, just go to PA school, because that is not the right impression to give by any means. The PA program is very hard, and very competitive. And to break it down, basically, you're trying to learn what the doctors learn in 3 years. A responsibility to learn is not any less. Yeah, for example, we don't have very extensive microbiology courses. We don't talk about the different bacteria and their breakdown like doctors do, but we have to talk about all the illnesses. We have to talk about so basically you're getting a compressed, very intensified version of all that the doctors might know. That's not underestimating what they go through as extra. Of course, they have the more time, they have the more training. Again, there is a lot of in-depth training with the doctors, but we are expected to obviously care for people. So with that, the PA program is a very competitive program to get in, as you guys have seen, but also to stay in. يعني أنا بتذكر يعني from a personal experience إنه أنا أول ما دخلت البروجرام the first semester was you have to consider the first semester the easiest لأنه يعني you're still kind of a little bit of like there's a little bit of like review of microbiology, chemistry, حاجات زي دي يعني a little bit of review but at a very fast pace with extra stuff. And I remember like I think I had a B- in one of the courses, and I remember I was called into the office and I was told, you have to maintain an EAB with every class until you graduate. So if you drop to a B-, not a C, but a B-, then you're automatically on probation. So that's a big deal, because when I say all of this, I'm talking about a GPA that is very high and still high, but you will not graduate with that. So a lot of stress, a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of support. So you have to have the right support too. So if you're in a situation where you're still single and you're not married and stuff like that, and you're thinking about this is the most greatest opportunity to do then, because once you add children to the mix, once you add even just a simple marriage to the mix, honestly, that can complicate things. Of course, sometimes husbands can be very supportive, and they can actually act like parents and other family members and friends that can support. But sometimes if you are not sure that that's how it's going to be, sometimes that can also be a situation. So just to be very mindful that the PA program itself, to stay in it, is a pretty competitive thing. Another big thing, while you're in the PA program itself, you probably will not work. So this is time that you will be living off of loans. And because there's no time of the day to basically work. So you're going to be attending from 8 o'clock in the morning, likely until 5 p.m. And then sometimes you have 6, 7, where you have extra work to do. Then you have to get home and study until the next day, 8 o'clock. So basically, exams are every other day. And that's how the program flows. So with that being said, I think that gives a kind of like a breakdown insight. My last slide was questions, but before I get to that, I do just want to give a moment to my friend and sister here, Madeline, to just have her share her kind of a little bit of experience and what she does now, and see if she can also help answer some of the questions. So I'm going to move this over to her.
Hello, guys. My name is Madeline Mvula. I'm the physician assistant. I'm in Qatar visiting my sister. I've known her pretty much my entire life. I started my journey at UNCG with Sahar. We graduated the same year, 2009. I was a biology major, undergrad in chemistry, graduated in 2009. And, I had done a program several years prior to graduation where I was introduced to the PA, what's the term that I'm trying to use? The PA profession. And I immediately was drawn to it because it's very, like Sahar was mentioned, it's a 2 years master's program. I didn't want to be in financial debt, so I feel like it resonated with me. I like to do different things, and the fact that I was able to go from one specialty to the other really attracted me. So I got into PA school in 2013 at Elon University. I graduated in 2015 in March. And I passed my exam and started working in family medicine. I was actually working at an office, an outpatient office, Cornerstone in High Point. And then I was doing urgent care at the same time. So another great thing about the profession, you're able to work in several specialties. So I was doing family medicine and I was doing urgent care, which I really loved. And then moving back to 2017, I decided to move to a different city. I moved to Charlotte and I got into psychiatry. So I started working in the hospital. I was working 4 days a week in the night shift. And then in 2020, I transitioned to a telehealth job. So I'm still working in psychiatry, but I'm working from home. I work 7 days on, 7 days off. I do see patients at about 10 different emergency rooms. So I have the chance to see patients at different hospitals where they don't have a physical provider there. So yeah, what else do you think I should add?
How do you like just the freedom that you have with telemedicine? And
I enjoy telemedicine, and honestly, you wake up and you get your day ready. I don't have to deal with traffic. I work from 8 to 6. It's a really long day, but I have my own pace. I'm not, rushing to see patients. I see patients, I assess them, and then I move on to the next one. I don't have that pressure to kind of have a certain number of patients that you can see. So I really do enjoy the flexibility of telehealth, especially if I have an appointment in between. Sometimes that's helpful because life continues.
Or if she wants to come to see her friends, she can come on her week off.
So yeah, I didn't have to take any vacation time, working 7 on, 7 off. I was able to switch with some colleagues. So honestly, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm visiting my sister, and what an honor to be here and trying to educate the young ones into the PA profession. I would not do anything else. I would not, and trust me, I've looked at several facilities. I've looked at medical school, I've looked at pharmacy school. I actually got into a pharmacy school and I said, you know what, the physician assistant profession resonates more with me. So I would not do anything else. I encourage anyone to look at the PA profession because of the flexibility that you have is awesome. I would have never believed, I don't think I would have been the one saying, hey, I want to work in psychiatry. But I've done it since 2017, and it's such a rewarding field. I love it. So if you have any questions, of course, we'll go through some questions, but I would recommend anyone to go to the PA profession. You will not regret it. The training now, like Sahar say, it's rigorous, it's intense. While I was doing my research for PA school, I read somewhere where it's like drinking water from a fire hydrant. It is drinking water from a fire hydrant. So it's a great profession, but you have to make sure that you go prepared physically, mentally, emotionally. You're going to be tested. So make sure that you have that support. Make sure that you have people that you can lean on because you're going to need it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
So much, Madeline, for joining us on late notice and offering that perspective. And I can definitely tell you're passionate and have no regrets about this profession. Makes me want to switch over. And thank you so much, Sahar, for that really comprehensive and informative presentation. I really appreciated the fact that it was very chronological, so it was very easy to follow. I really appreciated the fact that you you were very transparent and gave us the perspective of navigating PA school in the field as someone who's married and has kids. I think that's something that's really important to a lot of people on this call. So I want to just highlight some of the questions that are in the chat. We have Moram, she asked, and both of you feel free to chime in. She wanted to know if you're able to retake the GRE exam. And the second question she had is, as a PA, are you able to take some people for a shadowing experience? If you could clarify, Moram, what you mean by that second question, and then you guys can answer the first question.
You can speak on that part.
So in regards to the GRE, and of course, we applied we got into 2013. It's very competitive. I believe that the CAPSA opens up in April, May. I would say most people would take it before that. So take the time to study for it. So I would take maybe the late part of the year, November, December, to get ready. Take it in early January, see how you're doing. If you feel like you don't have that high score, you can take it again. I wouldn't take it more than 3 times. At that point, there may be, the panel may be questioning, if your numbers are not going up. But yeah, I think you can take it at least twice. I would recommend taking twice.
And one thing I would say about the GRE in general, there are classes that you can take that can prepare you for the GRE. I remember I did this. So make sure that I didn't do a class, but I did the GRE cards, and I purchased those. And basically those are like a big stack of words and definitions that you have to go through that helps you with words during the GRE, because it's English, but it's really not English that we speak. It's a different kind of English. So you have to be prepared. So I remember I would be at work and I would just be going through the words and exam practice questions and stuff. So please do not be shy to know your weaknesses within that and kind of work on them and go if you have to go to classes, if you have to pay money. I remember like the cards cost then like hundreds of dollars, and I remember I was like, I hope this is worth it, and it was. So make sure you're actually investing in that before you even take the first one, and 100 words each day. And I think they're like 500, but they're most commonly used words and stuff. And if you need help with your essay skills, that should help you get classes, seek help for it. So try to be very like on a mission, like act like you're on a mission to do this. Don't just go into it blindly, because one, you'll be discouraged, and two, your numbers will not look good. Because remember, this is competitive. You have to kind of set yourself apart. Did we get a clarification on the other part of the question?
We did. Moran wanted to know if, as a high school student, can she shadow someone like you, Sahar, as a PA?
Come to Doha. Yes, so you can easily shadow any PA. Obviously you want to kind of know the person, and if you know someone, that's always great. I remember when I went into the field, I literally did not even know anyone. There weren't anyone around. So I was literally like looking at PAs in the Greensboro area. And then I put together this email that sounded very pity. And I was like, hey, can I come and shadow you? Until I fell into someone that could. So that's how you can do it. Otherwise, there are a lot of PAs now and sometimes pediatricians, or even like just doctors that we have, primary care providers, maybe a PA. So if you go to your doctor, look and see, ask questions, and if they are, then ask them, and I'm sure they'll say it's okay to shadow. PAs in generally are just very nice people. That's one thing I would say. So in general, we love the care, we love the field. We're very excited about it, and we're very passionate about what we do. So I'm sure you will find someone. But if I personally had a few of the Sudanese people come, students and people that looked into the PA program come and shadow me. And I remember from my job, I had to provide like a TV screen and things like that you have to do before you can come to the clinic. But once you do that, you can come and shadow. And if I'm ever back in town again, you guys have me always. So I'm more than happy to take you wherever I am. So that should not be a problem. But again, just keep a look out on who's a PA and ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
Thank you so much, Sahar, for opening that opportunity to them. I know there's several high school students within our community who are actually interested in PA. And I'm wondering, like, if you have some colleagues still from Moses Cone who are PAs who be open to high school students, shadowing them, like, and you can provide us with those connections. I think that would be really awesome. That
Yeah,
would students.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to help. So if anyone officially needs that, just reach out to me. I mean, obviously there's a lot of time. So don't, again, it's good to shadow and good to, but sometimes you're gonna be asked that later when you're ready for it. But just the shadow, it may not be a bad idea, but don't really get too caught up in that right now, because you still have time, but look at other aspects of the field too, and other things that you should be doing kind of proactively right now as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have another question from Hiba. She said, can you highlight the difference between an MD or DO versus a PA? I know you talked extensively about that, but I know there were people who joined on the call maybe later. So just briefly, if you could just highlight that again.
Yeah, so the biggest difference is in the training. Doctors are going to go typically have a bachelor degree, and then they end up going to medical school again, and they're going to go for about 4 years of medical school, and then they graduate with a medical degree. But then they have to go through their training after that, residency and things like that. So typically you want to look at maybe 8 to 10 years before you can officially be a doctor. Now, as far as PAs, you go through 4 years, and then you go through typically 2 to 3 years after that. So you're looking at 7 years. And the big thing with that, 6 to 7 years, but the big thing with the PAs that will kind of also take a little bit of time is the clinical hours that they're going to need from you to be accepted into the program. So you went 4 years, you graduated with your bachelor's in science, and you have to have clinical hours. So you have to work in the field of caring for people, medical assistant, CNAs, and that little thing that you have to do for clinical hours, a lot of times it doesn't come with that degree you did in biology. So it has to be kind of like a different, separate thing that you're doing. But then you have those hours, and then you go apply for PA school, the PA program, and then you go for another 2.5 years or 3 years. So the timing is the big difference. The other big difference, which is very important to highlight, is that medical doctors, you're working under the supervision of a medical doctor. Let me clarify what that means. What that means is I don't have to be supervised in the sense of you're working in a place and that's your supervisor that has to be there supervising you. But what that means is that PAs in many states cannot open, sorry, excuse me.
That's okay.
Is that PAs in many times, in many states, PAs cannot open their own practice. So you cannot go and open an own practice. You have to be under a medical doctor to open a practice, your own practice. That's a big difference. Although I have heard that some states are now allowing that, and I don't know the extent of how much, honestly. I have not looked into that, so don't quote me, but that is a big another difference. And then, of course, the third major difference is going to be in the income that you make. Doctors are going to make 1.5 to 2 times as much as PAs as a starting salary. And obviously, they have more debt because they went to school for a longer time, but then also their training is more. So appropriately, they make more money, 1.5 to 2 to however much. So it's a quicker way. It's not an easier way, but it is a quicker way to become a medical provider. It's not an easier way. Please, you guys have to understand that, because some people think it's, I just want to skip, and medical school is hard. The MCAT is hard. I want to do PA school. And the PA profession knows that. So they have made this very hard for people like that. So this is a separate program. I want to care for patients. I want to take care of patients, but I don't want to go to school for 7 years. What do I do? Or I'm sorry, for what did we say, 8, almost 10 years. What do I do? This is another option. So the money is big, is a difference. The time of how long you go is a difference. And then opening your own profession. And then, of course, you have to work under the supervision. This under the supervision does not mean the person has to be there physically with you. All of the work I have done, I have never had a doctor with me. but I am officially under a doctor. So for example, when I worked at FastMed, a lot of you guys know me from there. FastMed does not even hire any doctors to treat people. So they hire PAs and NPs. So what that means is there's a doctor somewhere sitting and making money off of us, but that's a different story. But the point is there's a doctor supervising. We're the ones running the show, if you will. So the other big thing is also if you are interested in surgery, you cannot perform surgeries by yourself. You have to work with doctors to perform surgeries. So you cannot perform surgery as a doctor. You don't make as much money as a doctor. You don't go to those are the kind of the cons. You cannot open your own practice. And then you go for school less, you have less debt. You have more flexibility. You can change professions easy. You can take time off. A lot of times doctors will speak about being not able to do that because of the type of work that they do. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, definitely. And I'm just going to add a little bit of comparison about the MD and DO since she also asked about that. For those of you know, there's two types of medicine. You can do allopathic medicine, which is where you go to a traditional medical school and you would get your MD, or you can do osteopathic medicine, which is another route and in which you would go to a DO school. And they're very similar in their trainings. The biggest difference is that with a DO school, you're basically studying the same curriculum that the MDs study, but in addition to that, you're taking additional classes because they focus on more holistic medicine. So they try to steer a little bit away from, just diagnosis and then just medicating patients. They try to kind of get to the root cause of disease and take a more holistic approach. In terms of the number of years, it's the same. It's just a preference for whether you want an MD degree or a DO degree, and just a little bit of philosophy than anything. So, let me see. There are more questions in the chat. Don't see any more, but I know like a question that I always get from people who are interested in PA is what is the best way to acquire those clinical hours? I know you mentioned like CNA, EMT, MA, but people are always wanting to know like which one like you would recommend to make them more competitive applicant.
So that's actually a really good question. I would say if you're in high school and it's really early on, look into CNA programs. I know, for example, Grimsley, when I went, had a CNA program that was towards the end of it, like senior year. It's a certificate you get. It's just like one of those optional courses. But if you do that and you graduate with that, then when you finish, when you're in that summer break or even throughout your bachelor's, you want to do extra work, do it as a CNA. That way you can work in nursing facilities and you're kind of gaining that income, because you guys all know that anyone that goes to college wants to feel that kind of like financial freedom, and I want to work and make my own money. So then that you have that opportunity to do that. And of course you can do it at your own pace, and you can just pick up shifts when you can, when it's summer break, when it's like seasonal work, or if you want to do it like a daily reduced hour, however. So I think that's a good opportunity because it's actually offered in high school. If you are already out, obviously you can still do a CNA, but I would look into the MA program at that point, medical assistant program, because what that allows you to do is you might have to probably kind of get a loan or pay for it or however, but if you get that, then you can do the same thing, work as part-time in urgent care settings in the hospital as a medical assistant. And when you're doing that, you're actually direct patient care. You will actually be working with PAs at that point and exactly see what they do. And so that's another good opportunity to do. If you guys are very kind of like what is the word? Would love to like do EMT and stuff like that, to work in the ambulance, I think that's appropriate too. That may be a little bit more training that you have to do, and then it might actually take a little bit like more of your time during school. So I don't know. That's just the impression I have. So I think the biggest would be CNAs, would be medical assistants. And just one thing to highlight, because I know some of these things people may not be exposed to. If you don't like direct patient care like that, like if you have a CNA degree, you're a certified nursing assistant. So you're a nurse you're an assistant to a nurse. So, and a nurse already takes care of patients. So you're assistant to that person. So you're doing really work that is entails a lot of one-on-one. So, you know, you're picking up the patients, you're putting the patients, you're changing the patients, you're changing bed sheets, you're changing the patient. So if you feel like for any reason, like that's kind of like not for me or not, I really don't know how much I like that, then medical assistant would be better, because then you have that direct patient, but you're not really doing that kind of work in nursing facilities and stuff. So you can do it again in outpatient or hospital settings where you're taking vitals and doing stuff like that, histories of patients. Yeah, Madeline's going to add something too.
I do believe that being a medical scribe is also a great opportunity. I think usually you have to be 18. I think the facility where I used to work for outpatient used to hire like high school seniors, 16, 17. So I would look into that as well. Not only do you get to shadow a professional, you also get kind of familiarized with the medical terminology, which I believe that in the long run can only benefit you. So it's something to consider. A medical scribe is pretty much just, you know, high school. I think you need to have at least a high school diploma, GED, then like I said, maybe young seniors. You're pretty much just taking notes, filling documentation for the provider. So as I'm seeing the patient, I'm pretty much doing my exam and pretty much telling the scribe, hey, you know, nothing in the ears, the eyes look clear, heart sounds are okay. And the medical scribe will document that for me. So a lot of facilities now are hiring scribe so that it takes less time for documentation for the provider.
Awesome. And is it important to diversify these experiences, or does it really not matter how you get your clinical experiences?
From what I see, from what I have seen, I don't think, I mean, obviously, anytime you're looking into something that big of an investment, the more the exposure that you have, the better. But I think as far as the PA school itself, I don't think they want more than one. Because remember, they're going to ask you, they're going to look at your GPA from college. They're going to look at your GRE score. They're going to look at your clinical hours from where they are. So it's basically a check mark, if you will, from that. I think it's just typically a check mark. That kind of brings us to the next part, Arij, which may be very important for them, is the interview. The interview is a big thing for the PA program, because remember, it's very competitive. A lot of people are going to have the GPA, the GRE, the medical experience, because everyone did that preparing for PA school. So they look at the interview, kind of what sets you apart. So you have to be very, it has to be very personable, and it has to be really, there can be a lot of bluff. It has to be seriously like, what are you about? So you want to be really ready for that. So volunteer work, experiences, things like that, I would definitely add that, and kind of be empowered by that. And even the actual essay that you're putting out there in the CASPA can speak to some of that experience that we have. So one thing I would always encourage the young people is that, you know, as you're going to, let's say, for example, you have the profession in the back of your mind, always think around it. So let's say, for example, now, inshallah, Sudan opens up and people are able to go back and see people and family and stuff. Think about going out there and doing some volunteer work. It's always a great opportunity. The first time everyone flies back, you know, however you make that, but make it happen, document it, take pictures, meet people, write journals, kind of have that empower you. So that's always like something that makes you stand out, you know. Another thing, just in general, our background, you know, where we've come from, all of us as refugees and as, you know, first generation kind of like college kids and stuff, we've all went through a lot of challenges and experiences and stuff. So always kind of like build on that. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. And just from a personal experience, honestly, like I remember when I went and I had my interview, I actually had just recently gave birth then. And I remember I got the admission letter to invite me for the interview. And I hate to say this, but it's not like I hate it, but I mean, I literally just gave birth 10 days ago. And they gave me a date, and you know, everyone around me was like, just call and just make sure you can change the date and stuff. But I knew this was like a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I didn't want to give it up. And I'm glad I didn't, because I remember when I went, I actually saw a pediatrician that interviewed me, and she was like, well, what makes you stand out? And I told her my story, and she was like, girl, what are you doing here? And I was like, I know. And she was like, oh my God, Dr. Duffy. And ever since, even now until today, like she always looks at me, she goes, you are just something. So, you know, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, and I fell into the right hands. But the point is, like, you have to stand out. You have to say why you want this, and you have to, and inshallah, Rabbana, yani, we'll make it happen if it's meant to happen, of course.
And we have Omnia also asking, how do you go about finding MA programs? Which ones do you recommend?
MA programs, the first thing to always do, look at community colleges. Look at what is it called, GTCC? See if they have one. If they don't, I know there's a lot of like, the MA program is actually an online program now. A lot of places don't, you don't have to go to an MA program. Just Google it. And there's one name that's kind of like almost on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. It's one of the schools that does a lot of online, but basically it's online. A lot of the work is online. You read, you study, and then they have some clinical hours that they require of you. You go to an urgent care. Sometimes they even give you the hours. Like they tell you, go to this urgent care, work with this person. Other times they want you to do it yourself. So you just go to urgent cares, then you shadow for them. They give you a check at the end when you have done what you needed to do and you were a good person and stuff like that. And then you have your degree. And a lot of times these people are the ones hiring you as an MA. I think it's a great opportunity because you don't want to waste your time like working at Gap and like Old Navy when you can do this and you can go towards your hours. So that's always something to look into.
Let me see if there are more questions in the chat. I think it was the last one, but I do have to ask, because when it comes to clinical hours for PA school, we hear everything from 1,000 hours to 2,000 hours. Some say it's recommended, some say it's required. What are your, I guess your advice regarding how many hours they should go for?
It's on CASPA, depending on the school. So it's very easy to find. It's nothing hidden, and it's part of the admission criteria, 2,000 hours. I think ours was 2,000, was it? So I think ours was 1,500. But yeah, I'm sure it's changed now. We were actually the charter class of Elon. We were like the first year students. So, but the point is 2,000, 1,500, like that's the average. But if you think about it, again, to officially answer the question, go on CASPA or go on the admission website and look. It's right there. You can't miss it. But the other thing is, again, if you think about it, if let's say we talk on average 15,000, and I'm not great with math, let's say 2,000. But if you're working 8-hour shifts, like you're working on the weekend, 8 hours and 8 hours, that's 16. I mean, just count it up during college. You have the 2,000, so you don't have to take. So what people actually do sometimes is that after they finished with their bachelor's, they end up going to doing the clinical hours, okay? And then from there, during that time, they're kind of setting everything up. But you can start ahead, get the hours in, get all of that figured out together. And then again, you're just throwing these random hours here and there. Summertime, you're working a little bit more. And by the time you graduate, it'll be done. It's just preparing and thinking ahead. And I think what you guys are doing right now is the absolute best thing to do, because we didn't have this opportunity, which is, alhamdulillah, things worked out for us, but we didn't know any of this. So after we graduated and after we started working, we're like, oh, we don't like what we do. What should we do? And then we learned, and then we went back, and then we did. So you're doing it now early on. This is the best thing you can do.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's the whole, I guess, objective for us, is trying to provide opportunities that we didn't have for the youth, right? So I appreciate you guys so much for being a part of this. For our audience, if anyone has any more questions, and you go ahead and unmute your mic and you go ahead and ask them.
If you don't mind, Arij, Madeline just wanted to give you guys a little insight, and then we'll go back to that.
Okay.
So just like Sahar said, when you're applying to PA school, your personality have to stand out. The panel is looking at 1,000 interviews. your scores. Everyone is going to have a high GPA, probably high GRA score. So whatever you're doing in terms of getting patient care, make sure that you establish good relationship with the people around you, because you're going to need a letter of recommendation, and you want that letter of recommendation to stand out about your character, your work ethics. So that's just something to keep in the back of your head, that you want to stand out while you're doing this patient care, so that you can have an excellent letter of recommendation. I think that makes a significant difference as well. And in terms of the CASPA, it's a centralized application system. However, make sure that you pay attention to the school, because sometimes they will need supplemental information and they have those additional deadlines. So that's something that you want to keep in the back of your mind as well. The CASPA has a deadline, and that the school that you're applying to will probably need additional information.
Thank you so much. Are there any more questions from our audience? If you do, you can go ahead and unmute. It looks like you guys answered everyone's questions. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Khalid.
Yeah, so one more question maybe. So looking back, I think about, you know, the important thing, like for people in high school. So I want to go back a little bit more, not even college. So like in your high school, you need to go to get a biology degree or something like that, right? Can you talk more about how to get ready for that in terms of like high school? If I'm in high school now and I'm interested in getting like a biology degree or something like that, AP classes, something like that, because I think one of the things we want to do is to prepare our youth to start this journey very early before we even talking about PA.
Yes, I totally agree with you. You know, the biggest thing I want to say, and I know times have been challenging with, especially high school time. It's a pretty challenging time where everyone is very scattered thoughts and stuff, and they're not really as focused and stuff. One thing is always think that you really have to go through college, PA or not. You have to go through college, and you have to make sure that you're doing something that is worth it, so that when you're graduating, you have the satisfaction of what you've done. And two, you have the actual financial means to pay those loans back. That's what I always tell my young people. Sometimes you think like there's a lot of options available for you, so I'm just gonna do the easiest. But remember, like finances are important, because a lot of times, you know, you're not going to have the opportunity to have your mom or dad pay for school for you. So you have to take loans, you have to do financial aid, you have to take grants, things like that. So you have to be able to be well off to actually afford school, because school is not free. So for that reason, you have to make sure that you're looking at a career that is promising, that is actually worth it. And just to throw it out there and be really honest, you're going to have to choose something that's competitive and not as easy. If you're going through college and you're thinking stuff is easy, then you're probably not going to end up being satisfied later. You have to be challenged a little bit. So like Khalid said, from the beginning in high school, be very focused. That's all I say. You know, anything that happens otherwise is absolutely fine, but you have to be focused on your studies, because you want to finish that time at the appropriate time. And then even if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know if this career is for you or any other career, just graduate solid and think, I need to figure out something as far as my college years quickly, or kind of be on the path. That saves a lot of money, because if you take classes and you're not sure and then you change, that's a good 6,000 here, 7,000 there. And believe me, by the time you graduate, it'll be 31,000 and you'll be paying it for 10 years. Because it has interest, it doesn't go away. So you have to kind of like think ahead and think that the opportunities are there. And you don't have, and the one thing I always have to say, and I thank you, Khalid, for this question, because it reminded me, please know that you do not have to be the smartest kid on the block to succeed with anything. And I think soon to be Dr. Arid, she can attest to that. You know, I'm not saying she's not smart by any means, but I'm just saying, once we're in that professional world, And once we're in that kind of like those professional programs that are very competitive and stuff, you'll see a lot of people that you are a lot smarter than them, but they work harder. So you have to think, play hard, play smart. You don't have to be the smartest kid. You don't have to be the one with the 4.0 GPA. You just have to be a dedicated, hardworking individual. You will get anywhere. So always know that, please, that you do not have to be like, if you feel like, well, I'm not up for this, believe me, you are. Just attending this can already kind of set you apart a little bit from anyone else. So just put that always in your mind. If there is an opportunity, go after it. If there are things that you can see or do it, because it'll open you up to other things, and it's just you'll see yourself advancing appropriately.
100% agree. I always say that, if it's been done before, you can do it. We like to think that some people are smarter than us and all that, but we're a lot more, I guess, like similar to each other than we think we are. I always say it's just how bad you want it, kind of echoing what you're saying. It's how hard are you willing to work for it? And then that really determines whether or not you're going to achieve that thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I have a question. This is Amani. And just I'm echoing working hard piece. I always believe that there is value in working with nonprofit like the Sudan House. And we've been privileged as a Sudanese community here in Greensboro and the surrounding cities to have the Sudan House as a nonprofit. Do you think does it bring value for our young youth to volunteer in the Sudan House? And I'm always trying to drive the spirit of volunteering and show the parent how it's really very important and critical to their future career to volunteer in the Sudan House. But I want to see what's your perspective in this point. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Amani, thank you. I cannot reiterate or highlight enough the opportunity that she just spoke of. And it's so sad that it didn't even cross my mind until you just said it now. We're going to stuff in Sudan. Why? When you can do it even here. You don't even have to wait for the war to end to go to Sudan. You are absolutely right. Remember, any nonprofit that you're helping, anything you're doing and you're not getting paid for, it counts as volunteer, as volunteer experience. When we did medical clinics at Beta Sudan, okay? If you were the one to just literally write the patient's name down, that counted. And by the way, speaking from a personal experience, I actually did some volunteer work at Moses Cone. I remember, like I used to do it in high school or even after high school or something, and I would be the one. To when you went in. This was before the rebuild of the hospital, but when you go in and you're asking question like, where do I go? I was the one. I'd be like, take a left, and that counted. So don't underestimate anything you're doing to help with people in general. If you're helping with the kids one day because they said they have an event, we need someone to help with the kid, write it down, date it, have someone sign it. Khalas, keep it with you in your records. If they say we need someone to help clean up because you did it for an event that helps people. If you attended this presentation, write it down. Okay? If now you know me, you guys already know that you can, as long as you reach out to me and I physically have you shadow me or something, you can write my name. So now you have a connection. So all of this counts. Any work that you do with the Sudan House will always count. And be creative with it, by the way. You guys have that opportunity that we didn't have. I didn't have a Sudan House to even like express myself in. All I had was to think outside the box. So what did I do? I went to Moses Cone. I asked them if I could volunteer, and they were like, well, we don't need anything. I was like, please, I can just be like the door opener. They were like, okay, girl, just sit there. So I sat there and it counted. So come together to these Beta Sudan things, events. When they ask for volunteer, go for it. When they ask for ideas, do it. Mentoring kids. I used to actually tutor high school kids. I used to tutor math and science for high school kids. So that's what I did. And that counted for something in the community. I even got paid for it, but it counted. So, setting a date with kids, setting events, you just have to think about it and you have to put it in paper and make it presentable. But we have the biggest opportunity within our hand. And you guys realize the need of it. So please utilize that. And it's something there. Times, alhamdulillah, are getting easier on people. You guys have people like Dr. Arid, you have people like Khalid, Dr. Amani, Dr.
Hiba.
Dr. Hiba, khalas, that you guys can reach out to, can gain things from, when we didn't have that. So please just use that, be creative and use it and stand out. Don't be afraid to stand out. Don't be afraid to be the one, I'm gonna go this weekend and do this thing and I'm gonna write it on my resume later. I'm gonna add this. So all that, please do. Please add, please think about. Thank you, Dr. Amani, for bringing that up.
We cannot echo it enough. I'm so glad you asked that, Dr. Amani, because this is an opportunity literally given to you on a silver platter. Like, here, take it. It's not all about grades, having a 4.0 in high school, 4.0 in college. If you're not volunteering, if you're not a well-rounded student, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not in a healthcare professional. I can 100% confidently say that. You won't, people will look at you and say, you're saying that you want to help people, but you have done nothing to demonstrate that you help people. So think of how amazing it is, not to say that you like to help people and say that you like to help your community, but they can see a track record of you volunteering in the community, being involved with Sudan House, doing what you can. So you're not just talking the talk, but you're walking the walk, right? I remember, just to give you an example too, like when I was in high school, I remember like every Saturday there was there's the women of the Jami, ICG, and they would have like halqa. And they will always bring their kids, and their kids were just playing outside. So what me and a friend ended up doing was, when the halqa was happening, we brought those kids in and we basically started doing science projects with them. That shows leadership, that shows commitment to service. And, when I was applying to colleges, that's the thing that they kept asking me about. They're really amazed by that. So, you do things like, because you genuinely want to help your community, but doing that also serves you. So definitely take advantage of Sudan House. And like Sahar said, like, be creative. When, you create your own projects, that shows leadership. They love to see that. I mean, you can go very, very far with that. We have like the pre-health like WhatsApp group, and I always tell them like, this is, this can become an official thing, that you are part of the Sudan House pre-health group, and I'm open to ideas. Whatever you guys want to do, like, let's make it happen, because again, like, this can work for you. Take full advantage of it. Like, I cannot echo that enough. So I'll just leave it at.
Very well.
Yeah.
said.
So another point about that is, you need to be able to work with teams. So most of the time, it's easy for you to work by yourself, but when you work with teams, you get different perspective. And that's how leadership is being born. You are able to work with people. Sometimes there's going to be disagreement on view, and how you handle those disagreements, how you work with your teams, how you support your team, right? So all those things that part of the leadership skill that will prepare you for something greater. So usually, like when even in our job, we had we interview for like a director position or something like that. We ask people, have you led teams before? Because when you lead teams, that means you have to learn from the teams, right? Most of the time, you learn from people working with you. So leadership is really just doing things and learning, and it doesn't mean you are perfect. It means that you are willing to learn and willing to adapt. So I appreciate that perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Khalid. I'm going to add something to that. I just remembered when we were in PA school. I don't know if you remember, Madeline, but I remember one time we had it just stood with me. We had a doctors would come in and give presentations and stuff. And I think this doctor, as soon as he came in, he didn't say much. And he just said, I want a show of hand. I want people to raise their hand. How many of you, well, actually the way he said it, he was like, a third of you are like smart people. Like right now you're GPA, like this PA school, you got it. Like you're making good grades in PA school. And then half of you are and then there's that third of you that's like struggling, Y'all are just standing by the, like they say, like just the last straw. And he was like, don't be afraid to think that that last third are going to be the best medical providers out there, because they're not the smartest. And everyone was looking at us like, we were just looking like, oh, what do you mean? And he said, a lot of times the smartest are not the people with the greatest personalities. And the smartest are not the greatest with the people interaction and interpersonal skills. So those of you that are struggling because you're not the smartest are going to be those that have that, just kind of that little extra in them that can make them stand out as medical doctors. And who wants to go to a doctor because they're the smartest and the rudest? You want to go to a doctor that makes you feel welcome, right? I mean, I know obviously as much as any other doctor because I have to. But then I have to have interpersonal skills. I have to have leadership skills. I have to have a lot of skills that make my patients more comfortable with me versus that other doctor. So I say this to say, please do not think you're not smart enough. I always tell that to the young youth. Don't think that someone who went to medical school, DO school, pharmacy school, PA school, that they're smart. You just have to work hard and be prepared. Prepare yourself. That's all you need. Prepare yourself and be ready.
Do we have any more questions, guys?
Doesn't look like we have any more question. So yeah, I would like to thank you everybody for attending. Appreciate the effort in the presentation. Arij, Dr. Amani, everybody who attended this, يعني ما شاء الله جزاكم الله كل خير. يعني حاجة والله جميلة جدا إنه إحنا في الكوميونتي بتاعتنا عندنا يعني قدرات كبيرة جدا ومحتاجين نتعاون مع بعض. ممكن نعمل حاجات كثيرة جدا. شكرا لكم. بدي المايك لأريج وبعد ذاك دكتور أماني.
Thank you so much again, Sahar and Madeline, for sharing your journey, sharing your insight, being able to answer so many questions that we had. But we took advantage of the opportunity, and you guys have been very comprehensive and very helpful with your answers. So I really appreciate it. This has been definitely a very enlightening session. And our most interactive. So I really appreciated that. I want to thank the audience for your engagement, your questions, and just really taking the time today to join us. And special thank you to our, Dr. Khalid, our Sudan House president, and Dr. Amani, who was our Women and Child Secretary, but also the founder of our Sudan House Education Committee, in which we have, brought this through. And I just want everybody to kind of reflect, take the time to reflect on all that has been shared today. But if you have any further questions, inshallah, we'll get the contact information from Sahar and also Madeline and share that contact information with you guys so you guys can follow up. I hope that you were taking notes. There was a lot of nuggets of wisdom dropped today. So thank you again for being part of the session, and I look forward to seeing more people continue to come to our sessions. We do have 2 more, inshallah, towards the end of the year. We don't have anything next week, but we do have one on the 7th, and that will be focused on medicine. So we'll have different medical students from different universities, mostly Sudanese, coming on and speaking about their journey and also highlighting, the journey to becoming a medical professional. And then on the 14th, inshallah, that one will be on dentistry, and it will be led by myself and a couple other colleagues. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Sahar. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Arij, and thank you, Khalid. It's really very valuable information. And thank you to everyone who took the time to attend this session. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, مع السلامة.
السلام عليكم جميعا.